Saturday, July 22nd, 2023, just coming back from the gym. What a day, what a workout. hardest thing about getting a job done is getting it started, getting out of bed. You know, that's the hardest thing to do. So, I guess what's news in Ukraine? Everything is news in Ukraine. I guess they put the cluster munitions into theater, but it looks like there's also a lot of decoy trenches. And I've been watching the commentary on the war and everything. It looks like it's going to be a long war. I've been saying that all along. It just Ukraine doesn't have enough to give it the full push. You know, the Russians have really dug in on the eastern side of Ukraine, and getting through all that trenches and minefields, it's just a bear. It's a mess, you know, because now they're the attacker, so they need the 3x. You know, they need to have 3 times the forces of the defender. You know, the roles have changed. And then the Russians are very close to their border, and you know, this territorial Russia's off limits, so they can hide their supply lines right behind or supply depots right behind the line. And yeah, it makes things tricky. I mean, of course there's stuff going boom at night in Russia, but it's not enough. And who knows, some of that's probably like Kremlin false flag. I mean, when they started the Finnish war with Finland in '39, they put like a whole regiment of their own people out there and started shelling them, and then blamed it on the Finns. So, you know, you got a lot to worry about when you're in the Russian army. You know, it's not a very healthy career choice. It's right down there with coal mining or working at a convenience store, you know, in America. You know, it's but I don't know, that's the Russian thing. From what I understand, they have a infinite amount of 155 millimeter artillery rounds. You know, they've been building that since the 40s. So they have got stockpiles of that, and that's their hallmark, is artillery. You know, Russia is defined by artillery mainly, and tanks, but the tanks are mostly gone. But cannons are very cheap and easy to produce. You know, it doesn't take much tech to make a howitzer like a World War I style one. I mean, the ones from Sweden that are here, I mean, that's on another level. Or the American ones that, you know, have all the computer chips and, you know, programmable ammunition and stuff. I mean, that's all that's keeping Ukraine alive now, is the quality to counteract the quantity. You know, the quality of munitions, quality of training, you know, quality of tactics is counteracting the quantity of the zombie mob. You know, so it looks like Russia, though, is just looking to hold. And then you have Prigozhin reappeared in Belarus, and they're trying to do something on the Polish border, but I think that's just posturing. I don't think Belarus is stupid enough to invade Poland. I mean, they would just get their heads. I think once they get inside 3 centimeters of Poland, they would just have their heads cut off. I mean, Polish Air Force is basically Polish Air Force, Polish military, and everything. They're you know, cross-trained with the Americans for a long time. I mean, it's they're interoperating. And I would say, man for man, you know, on a physical fitness level, Polish military is strong. They're right up there with the Scandinavians or the British. I mean, on average in the American military, when you strip down to the soldier or the sailor and everything, physically they're not as strong as their European counterparts, but they are very well equipped and very well trained, and they know how to communicate, you know, so that counteracts. But when you have like the Polish, who have that same level of training, and then they have that physical fitness to go with it, even in their regular army. Now, yeah, U.S. Special Forces, SEALs, Rangers, that's another thing. But I'm talking about like regular infantrymen, and, you know, even those people in Poland, they're pretty hard. You know, they're pretty well trained, pretty fit, and everything. So Russia would just get its head cut off. It I mean, it would be like going in invading Ukraine, except that I believe even Poland has F-35s. So I'm not sure if they do or not, but I know they have the F-16s. I mean, they would have to counteract air power, HIMARS, and then of course it's NATO, so then everyone would jump in. Everyone would just like pile in on that fight. The Americans would have whole divisions coming by C-17 within 72 hours. They would be on the ground, airborne, 82nd Airborne would just like jump right in. They would load up in America at Fort Benning, Georgia, and they would be in Warsaw 15 hours on the ground later. The flights are much slower on the military transports, the C-5s and C-17s. They go much slower than the commercial airliners. So normally that's an 8-hour flight from East Coast U.S. to the Polish, to Warsaw. But I think the military transports would take a lot longer. But they would, maybe that would give the Americans the excuse to go for Kaliningrad and start, lobbing some bombs in St. Petersburg. We've got to destroy some of that city. It's pay them back. It's so I don't know. And I mean, Wagner is really good against women and children, and really good at attacking apartment blocks, in villages in Ukraine. So I mean, they're not this like, it's just like the Chechens, the Chechen regiments. They're really good at, attacking prisoners of war and attacking women, children, blowing up apartment buildings, but they're not really good at fighting a real army. We saw what happened when Wagner crossed paths with America in Syria. I mean, I still watch that video. It's like therapeutic, I mean, they used a B-52. They used a B-52 strategic bomber to chase down the remnants of that Wagner battalion. Those 400 men. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's just don't piss off the Americans. Everyone's talking about like how great the Russians are and the Iranians are and the Indians are, but geez, don't don't poke the Russian bear. This Nigel Farage. I mean, don't poke the American eagle. It just will. You'll have a bad day. I mean, I can't even imagine if like the Belarus wanted to cross into Poland. What would happen? I mean, I think already the assets are there. Already there's forward deployed U.S. troops. So the response would be like in that Battle of Conoco Fields. It wouldn't even be delayed. I think they've already set up that supply chain, and I mean they're building up on the border. I mean, we're ready for this war. It's. I think we're. They're already, the U.S. is rolling out laser cannons. Everyone's like, oh, the U.S. is behind on hypersonic weapons. Why do you need hypersonic weapons when the particle beams are coming to age now? I've seen some of the tests. They're actually, the stuff is working. I mean, we're in Star Wars. If they mount that stuff up in space, they could maybe they could blast the Kremlin. They could figure out where Putin is, like right in one of his talks, and he would be gone before you know it, and they could hit all the nuclear sites. Maybe we're 20 years from that. We're 20 years from being able to erase Russia. And I'm all for it. I mean, they have some good books and ballets and stuff, and maybe that has to be preserved. I mean, why not? The arts. Those people who wrote Swan Lake, or some of their painters or whatever, of course they'll have to be remembered as Russian, and they'll have to be talk about what Russia was. But the new Russia, new Russia is going to have to be something completely different, and we're going to have to re-engineer that society and the mentality. I mean, probably through immigration, mix them up with some people from India or other places where there's a lot of population explosion. So that they don't stay singularly focused. Otherwise they hang on to stuff. But when you mix people together, a new culture will emerge. Just like in America. America has become something distinctly different than where the people have come from. although a lot of people have German ancestry or Indian ancestry or African ancestry in America, you know, those people as Americans identify more with each other than they do when they go back to their country of origin. It's just like me in America. I identify more as an American and feel more at home in America than I would ever in India. When I go to India, it's like, yeah, it's cool. I look like everyone, feel like I belong in some way, but my mindset and my way of thinking is something completely different. And then when I'm back in like America and I go to a small town in Wisconsin where I grew up when I was a teenager, fit right in, just no problems. I understand everything, the food, the lingo, the music. It's just the way of doing things, the way of conducting yourself, just the basic table manners, all this other stuff. It's just, so for a country to become like that, they have to have a big waves of immigration and diversify. And I think when Russia's there's a lot of room, actually. I mean, you have overpopulation in India, and then you have villages in Russia dying out. So, why not encourage Indian immigration there, and they'll bring hopefully some English language. There's still English is pretty strong in India. It's going away. I mean, there's a whole new nationalism movement in India now that people are moving towards their state languages. They're not even speaking the Indian national language of Hindi. They're speaking their local language. So it used to be like learning English or learning Hindi was number one, learning English was number two, and then learning the state language was number three. And now it's all upside down in India because of the nationalism there that's taken root because of Modi. So now people are learning their local languages, then learning Hindi, and then English is like a last priority, and that's going to be a real disservice to India. But maybe those Indians that do know good English and stuff could be offered a chance, like a Homestead Act in this new Russia, the one that's like run by America. I would much rather, I think after all this, we used to hear all this stuff about how America props up dictators and all this stuff. I mean, now you look back, I don't think they had a choice. I think sometimes it's just life is that way. It just deals you a bad hand. You got to play it the best you can, because the other option, having a country that's propped up by Russia or propped up by China, it's just not an option. And so of course there's injustice that happened on the American side, but that can be fixed much easier than if the injustice was propped up on the Russian side. We have news media, we have debate, discussion, activism, and eventually it can get turned around. In America, there's mechanisms for this. So America's not perfect, but they do have a way to change and a way to improve things. And, people can rise up and organize themselves. I mean, if Americans could get off the video games and off the Prozac and become more activists, we could really make this society even better. I don't know why people are so incapacitated these days. We've gone through a lot as a people. But like I said, I think it's the processed foods. It's this whole change in lifestyle and diet and the social media, and something has got to be done, to bring us back to a more sustainable culture before the Russians are reprogramming us. We want to reprogram them, and we want everything to run in our way so it can be continuously improved, and we can, fix the environment and all of these things. It's fix all these problems of the world that could never be fixed under a Russian or Chinese hegemony. I mean, the American one allows for change and allows people to have opposition. I mean, you can believe in conspiracy theories in America. You can't do that in Russia. I mean, I guess you can, but no. Either they'll put you in Siberia, or they just you won't have a platform. I mean, because if you speak out or speak against the grain there, you're putting your life at risk. I mean, in America, you're maybe at most putting your job at risk, that they can just fire you. But you could be one of these kind of people that, getting a check every month or something, and or you won the lottery, and then you can pretty much say what you want. So, I mean, yes, your employer can limit your free speech by not employing you. So there is limitations of free speech, I have to admit, but it's not as bad as like if you're in China or Russia, you know, where you have to watch what you eat, or you could fall out of a one-story window to a horrific death, you know. So yeah, I was trying the GoPro camera out. I got a lot to learn. I was recording, and then I tried to transfer it to my phone through the Bluetooth, and in the middle somewhere it powered down and it lost the video. So it doesn't like save it and then send a copy of the file. I think it just transfers the bits, and then in the middle of it gets lost. It's like it's all corrupted and wiped out. So I'm going to try it again and use the USB to transfer the file. But I had made a video last night on the GoPro, kind of walking around the area and everything. So we'll try it again. We'll take another look and see what's going on. You know, it's a lot you can do with that camera. It's a lot to learn, and I have to fix a tile floor. We don't have any more tile guys, you know, in Lviv. I mean, good ones. They've all went to the army. So I got to become this like home improvement, do-it-yourselfer guy again. I used to do that when I was in my 30s, you know, my late 20s, early 30s, being do-it-yourself. And yeah, it's it's a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of physical work. I'll probably make a GoPro of it, how to fix a pebble stone floor. That was a mistake in my renovation, getting a pebble stone floor here in Ukraine. I didn't realize like the grout lines are very big. They require a lot of care. They get molded up and everything. Just it looks great in pictures and stuff. It looks great in those home improvement magazines, but it's really expensive, and it's just feels good on the feet, I have to admit. It's nothing like walking on river rock on you know, having that feeling on the bottom of your feet. But I don't know, and I'm really worried about the chemicals. I have a kid coming, and you know how those chemicals will stay, and will they come loose and get ingested, or is she going to touch it and then put it in her eyes or put it in her mouth, and it's going to stun her growth, you know. So because you have to seal the tiles, you have to seal them so that the water doesn't get in there and it creates mold or wash away the grout. So that's a problem I got to solve. You know, it might be easier just to sell the apartment and buy a new one, but getting the renovation done here right now, it's really hard. It's that might be an opportunity for Ukraine. There's half of Dubai was built by Indian laborers, you know, building all those skyscrapers. We could bring like a team of Indian, you know, building tradesmen, you know, tiles, bricks, you know, walls, you know, ceiling and floors, you know, those kind of guys. There's plenty of kitchen and bathroom shops. They can do all that finishing work. But if you could get like the construction stuff done, you know, flooring, whatever, done by Indians here, that might be an opportunity. You know, you just have to manage them well. You know, whenever you're working with people from India or any of these kind of third world countries, they have a different mentality. They really need to be told what to do. They're not used to this like self-organizing teams, like living the agile fantasy. You know, it just doesn't work that way. You know, so yeah, it requires a different kind of management. Anyway, take care. We'll see you. Bye.